Aston Martin is already gearing up to position itself as a serious contender for the 2026 season, potentially even eyeing a world championship. With Adrian Newey now on board to deliver the team under the new regulations and an exclusive Honda partnership already locked in, they could be looking at a chance to dominate the upcoming era, similar to how Mercedes did starting in 2014 and how Red Bull did after. This plan could also align with Alonso, who, while nearing the end of his career, might play a crucial role in transforming Aston Martin into a legitimate title contender. Lawrence Stroll has built a team of heavyweights, but one big question remains: where does his son, Lance Stroll, fit into all of this? Over the past 2 seasons, Aston Martin has been steadily positioning itself as a serious player in Formula 1. Bringing in former world champion Fernando Alonso sent a clear message: they're not just here to make up the numbers, they want to compete at the top. Last season, they looked like they could challenge Red Bull's dominance, even pushing Ferrari at times. But as the season went on, their upgrades fell flat, and what started as a promising campaign ended with them slipping toward the back of the grid. However, in recent months, Lawrence Stroll has been investing heavily into the team, laying the groundwork for the success he's been chasing. The focus is now shifting to 2025, as there's not much left to squeeze out of the current car. Stroll isn't pulling any punches either. He's brought in heavyweights like Enrico Cardale, Ferrari's former technical director, and Andy Cowell, Mercedes' power unit mastermind. His vision is clear. By 2026, when they'll have an exclusive engine deal with Honda, Aston Martin wants to win races and fight for championships. With the new regulations coming, they'll have an edge few other teams can boast, making Aston Martin a serious threat. For those who've been closely following Formula 1, this whole situation with Aston Martin probably feels like deja vu. If it feels familiar, that's because it is. We've already seen how nearly every top team tried to get Lando Norris on their roster. But despite all of McLaren's struggles, Lando stuck with them. Why? Because Zak Brown made a big promise: a championship winning car by 2025. And guess what? He's delivering on that, even ahead of schedule. Now, Lawrence Stroll is making the same kind of power moves, if not even better. He's assembling the right people, just like Zak did, but Lawrence has one huge advantage that McLaren doesn't. He's got Fernando Alonso. Unlike Lando, who's still chasing his first title, Alonso's already a world champion, and he doesn't crack under pressure. The whole point is not about Lando, rather than the challenges that both teams have, and have faced in the past when it comes to building a championship winning car. All eyes are now on Adrian Newey and his deal with Aston Martin. Thanks to Fernando Alonso's influence and Newey's desire to stay closer to home in the UK, everything is lining up perfectly. At Aston Martin, Newey will have a much more hands-on role compared to his limited duties at Red Bull, where he was mainly working on their hypercar project. According to reports from BBC Sport, Adrian Newey signed a long-term deal with Aston Martin, likely a 5-year contract worth up to £30 million annually, including bonuses and a possible stake at the team. Newey said in a statement, "I am thrilled to be joining the Aston Martin Aramco Formula 1 team. I have been hugely inspired and impressed by the passion and commitment that Lawrence brings to everything he is involved with. Lawrence is determined to create a world-beating team. He is the only majority team owner who is actively engaged in the sport." Newey is widely regarded as one of the greatest F1 designers in history, boasting 12 drivers' championships and 13 constructors' titles from his time with Williams, McLaren and Red Bull. His expertise is particularly crucial when new regulations come into play, and his move to Aston Martin comes at the perfect time, as he's expected to shape their 2026 car design. In fact, interviewers even had the chance to ask Lawrence Stroll about Newey joining the team, and here's what he had to say. "This is huge news. Adrian is the best in the world at what he does. He is at the top of his game, and I am incredibly proud that he is joining the Aston Martin Aramco Formula 1 team. It's the biggest story since the Aston Martin name returned to the sport, and another demonstration of our ambition to build a Formula 1 team capable of fighting for world championships." As soon as Adrian became available, we knew we had to make it happen. Our initial conversations confirmed that there was a shared desire to collaborate in a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Adrian is a racer and one of the most competitive people I have ever met. What many don't realise is how much effort and money has been pumped into transforming Aston Martin into the team it is today, and more importantly, the powerhouse it's gearing up to be in the next few years. The scale of investment is massive, and that's where Lawrence Stroll's ambition really shines through. But if he truly wants to see his team winning races and fighting for championships, there's a hard truth he might have to confront. The face of Aston Martin's future success may not be his son, Lance, who he once believed could lead the team through this transformation and become a champion in the sport. It's also important to point out that Adrian Newey is the kind of guy who wants to work with the best drivers out there. You can bet he'll be doing everything in his power to bring Verstappen over, especially if Verstappen starts getting frustrated at Red Bull by then. Pairing Alonso and Verstappen would be an absolute powerhouse, not just on paper, but in reality, way more formidable than having Verstappen alongside Lance Stroll. With Newey having no personal ties to the Stroll family, it's likely he'll push for the Alonso-Verstappen combo. Most of the key figures at Aston Martin would probably back this move too, as the pairing would provide better data and make car development much more efficient. On the other hand, Stroll, known for his inconsistent performances when under pressure, might find it hard to keep up, especially with Verstappen in the team. Fernando Alonso is probably nearing the end of his career, and at this stage, staying motivated in his 40s is going to depend on having a super competitive car and an elite team of engineers that Aston Martin can offer. Aston Martin can offer that, but they're not stopping there. They're aiming for the absolute best. Everything they've done so far seems like it's laying the groundwork to bring in Max Verstappen at the first opportunity, which will most likely be in 2026. While 2025 may not see any major shifts for either Verstappen or Aston Martin, that doesn't mean the rest of the grid will stay the same. Other teams have made significant progress in catching up to Red Bull, and even before the new regulations come into play, Red Bull could find it harder to maintain dominance. Verstappen, who's already shown frustration with the development of the RB20, might take this as the perfect chance to move on, opening the door for Aston Martin, but we'll elaborate that in further detail in the later stages of this video. The transition wouldn't be an issue for Verstappen at Aston Martin, where he'd reunite with several familiar faces, including Adrian Newey, Dan Fallows, and Honda. Max has always spoken highly of the Japanese manufacturer, crediting them as a key factor in his first championship win and the two that followed. The idea of racing with Honda again is something that shouldn't be ignored, but it's not just the people that could entice Verstappen to join. Aston Martin's cutting-edge facilities are another big draw. The new wind tunnel, simulator, and factory, all set to be operational by 2025, give them a serious edge. Plus, with Newey securing a deal to bypass the typical gardening leave in 2025, his direct influence on the next generation of cars will be massive, making Aston Martin an even more tempting prospect for Verstappen. Here is what Adrian had to say about that. His commitment is demonstrated in the development of the new AMR technology campus and wind tunnel at Silverstone, which are not only state-of-the-art but have a layout that creates a great environment to work in. Together with great partners like Honda and Aramco, they all have the key pieces of infrastructure needed to make Aston Martin a World Championship winning team, and I am very much looking forward to helping reach that goal. But, as you've probably guessed by now, trying to fit 3 drivers into just 2 seats isn't an easy task. And it raises the question of who Lawrence Stroll would let go to make room for Verstappen. We've seen Ferrari make similar tough calls when it comes to drivers like Sainz and Hamilton without much hesitation. But things are more complicated at Aston Martin due to the family connection. On one hand, Lawrence has built this entire project around his son Lance, so dropping him would be a hard decision. On the other hand, letting go of the competitive 2-time world champion like Alonso, who brings immense value and attracts sponsors, wouldn't be a great option either. This might force Lawrence into an uncomfortable conversation with Lance about possibly stepping down to another racing category. Considering Lance's inconsistent performances, there are definitely other drivers who could maximise the potential of that car and deliver better results than he has so far. We know Lawrence Stroll isn't afraid to make tough decisions to keep his business on top, but demoting his son from an F1 seat and admitting to the world that Lance isn't the driver he envisioned could be a step too far, something he might not be willing to face. Lawrence added, "We mean business, and so does he. Adrian shares our hunger and ambition. He believes in this project, and he will help us write the next chapter in Aston Martin's Aramco Formula 1 story." Would this chapter include axing his son to get the win? This could be the only chance for Newey to work with Verstappen, especially with the risk of Mercedes swooping in if Max chooses to leave Red Bull. Even though Toto Wolff has shown confidence in Russell and Antonelli for 2025 and beyond, the possibility of Verstappen joining Mercedes is still very real. The truth is, if you don't have the best drivers on your team, they'll be racing against you. And as we've seen throughout 2024, a top driver can make just as much a difference as a competitive car, if not more. It's pretty impressive how Lawrence Stroll has managed to gather all the key elements for success. His moves to bring in top talents like Cowell, Cardelay and Newey, along with massive investments in Silverstone's facilities, show that success often comes with tough choices. Right now, the most logical path for Aston Martin to start winning races and championships seem to involve making some difficult decisions. Fernando Alonso is unlikely to walk away from this project, especially after the setbacks he's dealt with. Of course, Lawrence could always choose to replace Alonso with Verstappen, given that Alonso's age makes it a plausible move. But this could go against what his partners and engineers at Silverstone might want. With Newey on board, he'd definitely want the best drivers available, and an Alonso-Verstappen pairing would be incredibly hard to beat. If you want to learn more about Adrian Newey's career and his influence on the sport, or see how pay drivers like Lance are ruining Formula 1, check out these videos. So, do you think Lawrence Stroll will make the bold call to replace his son with the 3-time world champion? And if he does, will Aston Martin start winning championships sooner, possibly as early as 2026? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.